Hi and welcome to Pure Yoga. If you want to come to the front of your mat in standing, having your feet hip width apart and your toes in front of the heels. Turn the palms forward, take a roll of the shoulders up towards the ears, back down towards the hips. Have a close of the eyes and a scan of the body from the top of the head down to the fingertips, down to the toe tips. Having a little check-in with how your body feels as you've arrived on your mat. Being aware of tight spots, any injuries, being mindful of them as you move. When you've taken the scan of the body, bring the focus to the breath and just notice how your breath's entering and exiting your body. If the eyes are closed, just noticing how your body is possibly swaying slightly to find its equilibrium. If you wish to switch into the Ujjayi breath, feel free to go to that. Slight restriction at the back of the throat, breathing in and out of just the nose, or continue to use the mouth if you're holding any colds or allergies. Opening the eyes, and on an in-breath, raise the hands up towards the ceiling. On an out-breath, bend the knees, fold from the hips, and bring the hands all the way to the mat with soft knees. On an in-breath, curl back up one vertebra at a time, keeping the arms heavy, and when you arrive back in standing, roll the shoulders back. Your next breath in again, raise the hands up towards the ceiling. On an out breath, bend the knees, fold from the hips, bring the hands nice and slowly to the mat, let the head hang. Next in breath, curl back up through that spine again, one vertebra at a time, and as you arrive in standing, roll the shoulders back. One more time, raise the hands back up towards the ceiling. On an out breath, soften the knees, bend from the hips, bring the hands back towards the mat. On an in breath, start to roll back up through that spine again, arms heavy, knees bent until the back starts to straighten. This time we're going to take ourselves through a little sun salutation. Breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling, and on an out breath, fold from the hips, bring the hands towards the mat or wherever they reach with a slightly straighter leg. On an in-breath, come to a half lift, hands to shins. On an out-breath, plant the hands, step back with your right foot. Step back with your left foot to find a plank position. On an out-breath, slowly lower, either drop knees or straight bodies to the mat or a hover. On an in-breath, lift up the chest and untuck the toes. Out-breath, either release the chest back down or roll straight over the toes. Lifting up of the hips and a squeezing of the heels back. Take a long breath in down dog and a long breath out. Gaze in between the hands, step your right foot forward, your left foot forward, and allow the body to fold over the thighs. Your next breath in, raise the hands up to the ceiling, bring the palms together at the top. Out breath, bring the hands to the chest and the hands to the hips. One more of those. Breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling. Breath out, plant the hands down towards the mat. On a breath in, come to a half lift, either fingertips or hands to shins. Breath out, plant the hands. This time, left foot steps back. Right foot steps back to plank. Then lower yourself to a hover or all the way to the mat. On an in-breath, untuck the toes and lift the chest. Then take yourself all the way back to your down dog, either chest to thighs or rolling over the toes, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Take a long breath in and a long breath out. Gaze in between the hands, bring your left foot through, your right foot through, and fold over the thighs, let the head hang. Next breath in, raise the hands up towards the ceiling, palms together at the top. Out breath, hands to chest, then hands to hips. Breath in, bend the knees, raise the arms, sink the hips. Breath out, fold from the hips, straighten the legs, hands to the mat. Breath into a half lift, tabletop back. Breath out, plant the hands, step right foot back, left foot back, hold plank for a few breaths. Holding plank here. Keeping strong in the core centre, strong in the shoulders, widen the fingers. Holding for another count of 3, 2, and 1. Then slowly lower all the way down to the mat. And when you meet the mat, let the toes untuck. Bring the arms to cactus arms. And on an in-breath, lift up with the chin, lift up with the chest, lift up with the arms. With the feet slightly apart, lift up the feet and squeeze the bum, hamstrings, lower back, mid-back, upper back. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Then releasing the hands back down, feet back down, hands by the side of the chest. Let the toes tuck under and the chest come back to the thighs. Let the forehead meet the mat, stretch through the armpits, stretch through the side waist. With the toes tucked under, stretch through the bases of the feet. Then on your next in-breath, lift up the hips and then squeeze the heels back. Take a little paddle of the feet and a nod and shake of the head. Then bringing yourself into a still position, heels back. Breath in, raise your right leg up and keep your hip nice and level with your left hip. So not turning the hip out, but squeezing the right bum cheek to raise that right leg high, toes pointing down. Then on an out breath, bring the knee to the chest and the shoulders over the heel of the hands. Squeeze the knee up, squeeze the foot up to the right bum cheek. And then raise that leg back up again. This time as you raise the leg back up, bend the knee and stack up with the hips, pushing the right foot to the left. Then realign those hips, bring the knee in towards the chest, gaze in between the hands as you step your right foot through. Drop your left heel to the mat, shoulders and hips face forward as you raise your arms up to find our warrior one position. Shoulders relaxed, arms long, hips low. Push into the outside edge of your back foot, the sole of your front foot. And try and tether up those ribs and hips slightly so we're not dumping into the lower back. Then bringing your right hand forward and your left hand back, find your warrior two, palms facing down. Then maybe sink a little lower in the hips to find almost a parallel right thigh to the floor. The gaze can be towards those right fingertips, or they can be down to the mat or out to the side. Wherever feels most comfortable to send that gaze, but try and keep that focus, that concentration. Then scooping your left arm down and around and forward to meet your right and come onto the toes of your back foot. Bring the hands then to the hips. Step forward to the front of the mat, bringing your left knee through and up to hip height. Try and find a focus on something that's not moving. And then starting to lean forward with the torso, back with the left foot, trying to keep the left toes pointing down and the left hip level with the right hip, pushing that left heel back as far as you can towards the back of the room. And then maybe release the hands from the hips and bring them down by the sides of the thighs. Squeeze the shoulder blades together to create some space across that chest. Holding for another breath. And then bend that right knee, step your left foot back, bring the hands to the mat, step your right foot back and hold plank for a breath. Make sure you've got a good alignment of plank, hands underneath shoulders, feet hip width apart. Then on your next in-breath, lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back, finding your downward facing dog. Your weight stays in your right foot as your left leg lifts. Keep both hips nice and neutral so the hip of the left is in line with the right and we're squeezing that left bum cheek to lift the left leg high. Right heel squeeze into the mat. Then bring that left knee in towards the chest and the shoulders over the heel of the hands. Squeeze the knee up, the left foot towards the bum. And then raise that left leg back up, keeping the knee bent, turning the hips, pushing the left foot to the right side of the room. And then realign those hips, bring that knee to the chest, step your left foot through, drop your right heel to the mat. Raise the arms up, keeping hips and shoulders facing the front and the hips low. Try and tether up those ribs and hips again. Push firmly into both feet. Arms long, shoulders relaxed. Maybe your gaze is forward or up towards those hands. Then bringing your left hand forward and your right hand back, arms to shoulder height. And then maybe sink a little more into that left knee, trying to bring it as parallel, that left thigh to the mat. Gaze to fingertips, out to the side, down to the floor, whatever works for you. Then scooping your right arm down and around and forward to meet your left and come onto the toes of the back foot. Then bring the hands to the hips, step forward onto your left foot, bringing your right knee through and up to hip height. Then from this position, lean forward with the torso and back with the right heel, trying to keep that right hip in line with the left. Keeping that plant of the right foot on that imaginary back wall and engaging the upper right thigh. Then maybe let the hands release from the hips and send them back, palms facing in, and squeeze the shoulder blades together. That focus now is down on something just on the floor, just in front of your mat maybe. And then softening that left knee and stepping your right toes back, hands to the mat, step your left foot back, hold plank for a couple of breaths. Then on your next in-breath, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back, find your downward facing dog. Let's flow through a vinyasa here, coming forward to plank on the inhale, releasing to the floor, drop knees, straight bodies or a hover. Then lift up the chest and untuck the toes, take your back bend, and then make your way back to down dog, either chest back to thighs or rolling over your toes, lifting up of your hips and a squeeze of the heels back. From your downward facing dog position, drop down onto your forearms and keep those bums lifted. Gaze back towards the toes, the knees or the hips when you find this space. We haven't moved the hands or feet here at all. We've still kept them at the distance of our downward facing dog. One more breath here. And then push back firmly into the hands, lift the forearms away and find your downward facing dog position, working strength through those shoulders. Okay, your weight stays in your left foot, your right leg lifts, both hip bones stay nice and level, no higher with the right than the left. Squeeze the right bum cheek. Then bring that right knee into the chest and the shoulders over the heel of the hands. Squeeze the leg up, the foot up. And then raise that right leg back up. This time bend the knee and stack up with the hips, pushing the right foot to the left side of the room. Then realign the hips, bring the knee back in towards the chest, step your right foot through, drop your left heel to the mat. Windmill your left arm up and over, both legs nice and straight. Then reach forward and down with your right hand as your left hand lifts. Left shoulder stacking, right shoulder tucking under. Right long side body, left side body, head in line with the spine. The gaze can be up to the left hand or out to the side or down to the floor. But the aim is to get those hands as far away from each other as you can to create space across your chest. On your next in-breath, lift the shoulders back up. Step your back foot slightly forward and turn the toes in. Left hand comes forward and up to the ceiling, right hand onto right hip. Then lean forward to a halfway point. And then bring that left hand to the outside of right leg or outside of right foot and plant it on the mat, keeping both legs straight still. Then turn the chest to the right, maybe reach that right hand up and gaze to the thumb. If the right hand lifted is too much for the shoulder, just bring the right hand onto the lower back. The aim is to get a good stretch down both of the legs, encouraging left hip forward, right hip back. So you've got good alignment through that pelvis. Taking one more breath here. And then bringing your right hand onto your right hip. Gaze down in front of the right toes. Bring your left hand slightly forward onto fingertips. Step onto your right leg and lift your left leg up to hip height, toes pointing down. Then again, turn the chest to the right. You can keep your hand on the lower back, or again, raise your hand up towards the ceiling, finding your half moon in reverse. Keep active through that left leg, pushing that left foot onto that imaginary back wall. One more breath here, and you're standing half moon reverse balance. And then bring your right hand back to the mat, soften your right knee, step your left foot back. Step your right foot back to meet your left foot, hold plank for a breath. And then lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back to find your downward facing dog. So same poses, opposite side. This time weight stays in the right foot as your left leg lifts, and try and keep both hips nice and level. Push firm into the hands, push back with the chest. Then bring the knee to the chest, keep the knee high, the left foot high towards the bum, shoulders over the heel of the hands. And then lift that left leg back up again, this time keeping it bent and turning the hips out to the left, pushing the left foot to the right side of the room. Then realign the hips, bring the knee to the chest, step the foot through, drop the right heel to the mat, right hand windmills up and over, and we find our standing both straight legs. Reach forward and down with your left hand as your right hand lifts. Think about the chest turning to the right shoulder stacking, maybe the gaze up to that right hand, keeping a long left side body, right side body, head in line with the spine. The more you push into that mat with the feet, the more stability you'll possibly find. Then starting to lift back up with the torso. Step your right foot forward and the toes in slightly. Bring your right hand up and your left hand onto the left hip. Reach forward and down to a halfway point, and then bring your right hand to outside of left leg or outside of left foot, and then turn the chest to the left. Then if you want to raise the left hand up, keeping both legs nice and straight, maybe the gaze is up towards that left hand. Taking a nice rotation in reversed triangle. One more breath. And then bring that left hand back down to the hip. Gaze down towards the left toes. Right hand slightly forward onto fingertips. Step onto your left leg and lift your right leg up to hip height. Toes pointing down, right hip in line with the left. And then turn the chest again and reach the left hand up, or keep it on that lower back, trying to find stability through that standing left leg. Maybe you come up a little more off those fingertips, holding and twisting in a rotation, half moon reverse. One more breath here. And then turn the chest back down to the mat, plant the left hand, soften the left knee and step your right foot back. Step your left foot back, hold plank for a breath. And then lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back to find your downward facing dog. Let's flow through a vinyasa here, coming forward to plank on your inhale and lowering to the mat or hover, exhale. Then lift up the chest on the inhale. Make your way back to down dog on your exhale. Have a nod, shake of the head when you meet back in down dog. From down dog, start to lower the forearms to the mat to find our dolphin pose, gazing back towards the toes, the knees or the hips. Not moving with the hands and feet, they're still planted where they were in your down dog position. Holding this place just for another breath. And then push back into the hands and lift the forearms away, finding your downward facing dog again. Okay, let's take another round of 3 poses, different poses again. Your weight stays in your left foot as your right leg lifts. Keep both hips nice and level here. Squeeze the right bum cheek, raise it higher if you can. Then bring that knee to the chest, shoulders over the heel of the hand, squeeze it up, right foot in towards the bum. And then lift that leg back up, keeping the knee bent and turning the hips to stack. Then realign those hips. Bring that knee back into the chest, plant the right foot at the front, drop your left heel into the inside, bring your right hand to inside of right foot, turn the chest and reach up with your left hand. Finding our side angle stretch when we turn the left palm forward and reach it up and over the head. You can stay here if you wish, or you can bring that left hand behind the back to find clothing, or the right thigh to find a half bind. Or you can find full bind, bringing your right hand underneath your right thigh and taking the hands or clothing on the outside of that right hip. Still keep nice and long through the torso. Try not to hang the head and try and keep your left shoulder lifted and your right shoulder stacked under. If you've bound, release the bind back out and send your left hand back up to the ceiling. And then slowly start to lift the torso, keeping your right knee bent. Bring the hands behind the back, interlace the fingers, push the hands towards the floor, squeeze the shoulder blades together, turn the chest. Lean forward towards that right leg, chest to the inner right thigh and the arms lifting away from the back if the shoulders are happy to do that. Gazing back with a heavy head towards that left foot. Let traction take any pressure out of that neck. Releasing now the hands back to the lower back. Bring your right hand just in front of your right toes, left hand by the side of the right foot. Step onto your right leg, turn the toes to the left of that left foot, and then lift that left hand up towards the ceiling, turning the chest to match where the hips are, turning the shoulders as well. Left shoulder stacking on top of the right. You can leave your gaze down or out to the side or up towards that left hand, and maybe just find a little hover occasionally off the fingertips on that right hand. Try and keep that left leg as straight as you can and your support through your right leg and in your outside right hip. Then releasing that left hand back down to the floor, turn the chest, turn the hip down, bend your right knee and step your left foot back. Plant the hands and step your right foot back, holding plank for a breath. Then lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back to find your downward facing dog. Have maybe a little nod and a shake of the head before we take those poses with your left leg. Okay, going with your left side. On an in-breath, raise the left leg up, keeping both hips nice and level. And then bring that left knee in towards the chest, shoulders over the heel of the hands, squeeze the knee up, squeeze the foot in. And then raise that leg back up, bend the knee and stack up with the hips. And then realign the hips, bring the knee to the chest, gaze in between the hands, step your left foot through, drop your right heel to the mat. Bring your left hand to the inside of the left foot, reach your right hand up to the ceiling and gaze up towards that thumb. Keep those hips low, then turn your right palm forward, reach that right hand up and over the head. Keep the chest open, keep that left arm pushing into that left leg. You can stay here or bring your right hand behind to take a hold of your left thigh, or bring your left hand underneath that left thigh to take a hold of fingertips or clothing on the outside of that left hip. And turn the chest a little more, lengthen the torso, Try not just to collapse over that left leg. Push nice and firm into both feet. Then if you're bound, release the bind. Send your left hand back down and your right hand to lift. Hold that space. And then start to lift up with the torso, keeping the left knee bent. Then bringing the hands behind you, taking the interlace of the fingers, push the hands down towards the floor and squeeze those shoulders together. Turn the chest, lean the chest towards that left thigh, chest to the inside. Let the head hang and gaze back towards the right foot and bring those arms up high. Breathe easy when you find this space. Then releasing the hands back to the lower back, bringing your left fingertips just in front of your left toes, your right hand to just by the side. Step onto your left foot, turn your right toes out to the side of the mat. Bring your right hand then up towards the ceiling and turn your chest and hips to face the right. We're standing on that left leg. Maybe you come up with a feather-like touch through the fingertips. Maybe you gaze down, out to the side, or up towards that right hand. Try and feel that long line on the left side body, right side body. Feel everything working strong in that center line. Holding that standing half moon pose just for another breath. And then release that right hand back down to the mat, turn the chest, then soften the left knee and step your right foot back. Step your left foot back, hold plank for a breath. And then lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back, find your downward facing dog. And then taking yourself a vinyasa, coming forward to plank on the inhale and lowering down on your exhale. Lift up the chest on the inhale and make your way back to down dog. On your exhale, finding down dog for a couple of breaths. So let's start to drop onto the forearms, keeping yourself high with the hips. Finding dolphin pose, gazing back towards those toes. Pushing nice and firm into those arms to keep those shoulders safe. One more breath here. And then pushing back into those hands to lift those arms back away from the mat. And let's do 3 more poses. Last pose being a balancing pose again. Weight stays in your left foot as your right leg lifts. Keep both hips nice and level. Squeeze the right bum cheek. Then bring that knee in towards the chest and the shoulders back over the heel of the hands. Bum and right foot as close as they can be. Then raise that right leg again. Keep the knee bent. Turn the hips. Then realign the hips and bring the knee back to the chest. Gaze in between the hands as you step that foot through. Stay on the toes of the back foot as you raise the arms to find a high lunge space. Then cactus the arms and lift the chest. Taking a back bend, thinking of that space above the bra strap. Taking the extension there rather than just dumping into your lower back. Then raise both hands back up, hands together at the top. Then bring the hands to the chest, lean forward, hook left elbow on right knee, resist with the right knee, push back. Long breath in to lengthen, long breath out to twist. Try not to let your left hip drop too low. Breathe in slow, long breaths. Next breath in, raise both hands back up. And then bring the hands then to the hips. Step forward onto your right foot, bringing your left knee through and up to hip height. Turn the knee out, outside ankle onto the top of the right thigh. Bend into your right knee and sink the hips, opening the left knee out as much as possible and bringing the chest as close as you can towards that left shin. Getting yourself in almost a crunched position, creating some length across that back. Strengthen that standing right leg. Taking one more breath here. And then start to stand back up, straightening back through the right leg, left knee back to hip height. Take a hold of the left knee and squeeze it into the chest and compress that left hip flexor. Then release that squeeze, bring the hands to the hips, slowly send your left foot back, bend your right knee, plant the left foot down, bring the hands either side of the right foot and step your right foot back. Hold plank for a breath. And then lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back. Find downward facing dog. Take a moment in down dog, maybe have a little nod and a shake of the head. Then your weight stays in your right foot as your left leg lifts. Both hips stay nice and neutral. Squeeze the left bum cheek. Bring the knee then to the chest, shoulders over the heel of the hand. Squeeze the knee up, the foot up. Then raise that leg back up, keeping the knee bent, turning the hips, pushing the left foot to the right. Then realign those hips, bring that left foot through. Stabilise into the feet, stay on the toes of the back foot, raise the arms up, crescent lunge first, and then cactus the arms and lift up through the chest. Try and think of that back bend being nice and equal from the lower up to that neck space. And then lift the hands back up, palms together at the top. Bring the hands to the chest. Lean forward, right elbow, left knee. Take a breath in, elongate. Take a breath out and rotate. Hips nice and low. Push firm into both feet, back leg nice and straight. Your next breath in, raise both hands back up. Then bring the hands to the hips. Step forward onto your left foot, bringing your right knee through. Turn the knee out, place the outside ankle on top of left thigh. Hands come together at the chest and bend in to that left knee. And bring that chest as close as you can towards that right shin. Hips as low as you can, feeling the strength on that left leg, holding your balance. With that right knee turned out, it's going to want to pull you over to the right side. Try and resist that pull. Stretch through the back. Then start to stand back up through that standing left leg and bring your knee back forward of the right. Interlace the fingers, bringing it around the right knee and squeeze it in towards the chest. Little hip compression on that right hip flexor. Then release the squeeze, bring the hands back to the hips. Slowly transition back with that right foot. And then let that right foot plant, soften the left knee, bring the hands down, step your left foot back. Hold plank. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. Then push into the hands, lift the hips, squeeze the heels back, down dog. And let's flow through a vinyasa, coming forward to plank on the inhale and lowering on your exhale. Lift up with the chest on the inhale and find your way back to down dog. When you get back to down dog, take a moment, long breath in, long breath out. And then drop down onto your forearms without fussing with those hands and feet and gaze back towards those toes. This time, step both feet forward, lift both of your hips higher. Bring your weight into your left foot, reach your right leg up. Try not to turn the hip on that right side. Keep hip bone level with the left side. Squeeze the right bum cheek, maybe to send that leg up a little higher. And squeeze that left heel a little lower. Bring your right foot down to where it came from, plant that foot, raise the left leg up. Try not to let the hip hoink. Squeeze the right heel back. Testing on the shoulders here for strength. Bring your left foot down, bring the knees down, seat towards the feet, forehead towards the mat, hands behind to take a hold of the heels of the feet. Then just let the shoulders hang over those knees. And then coming up onto the top of the head, keeping a hold of the heels, lifting up with the hips and stretch that back body. And then lower those hips back to the mat. Lift up with the chest. Bring your feet forward to the front of the mat and the bum into the centre. Have a little paddle of the legs. A few seated positions before we take ourselves back into relaxation. So bringing a bend into your right knee, drop the right knee out to the side, sole of the right foot into the left thigh. Then take a breath in, raise the hands up, and then on your out breath, start to fold towards that left leg, bringing the hands to wherever they reach, shins, ankles, or feet, or big toe. Take another breath in, lift the chest, push the rib cage forward, straighten that left leg a bit more by engaging the thigh, and then start to lean forward towards that leg, bringing yourself down to wherever you can reach, your range of movement. Chin maybe comes towards the knee or maybe it doesn't. Try not to use too much energy in that upper body by pulling yourself down with your shoulders. Try and use that abdominal contraction, even if you let go of where you're holding, and just see whether you can pull yourself closer with a little more strength work rather than using and expelling the energy through the upper body. On your next breath in, raise the hands back up. On your out breath, bring your right hand behind, fingertips pointing back, left hand onto left hip, push into the feet and raise the hips. Send the left arm back, palm facing down, stretching that left side body. Try not to lock out in that right elbow joint. Feeling it all down into that left hip, maybe into that left side waist. And then lowering the bum back to the mat. Turn the chest back to the front. Keep the right knee bent. Bring a bend into your left knee. Take a hold of the base of the foot. Find a balancing point. Then push that left heel up. Straighten the left leg. Try and have the big toe and little toe the same space away from the face. Relax the shoulders. Lengthen the crown. And feel that stretch through that back left leg. Then bringing that left foot back to the floor, right knee back in, hold on to the back of the knees, send your weight back with the torso, right knee lifts, foot lifts, left foot lifts. Release the hands, maybe straighten the right leg, maybe straighten the left leg, or alternate legs if you wish, holding for the count of 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. This time send your right leg long, drop your left knee out to the side, and on an in breath raise the hands up, toes of the right foot back to the shins. On an out breath fold towards that right leg. Remember, try not to use too much energy through the shoulders. Engage the upper right thigh, push the knee flatter, and then breathe out with the abdominals strengthening to pull you a little closer. Try and create that length down that left side body as you fold towards the right leg. Using your breath to help you go deeper. One more breath in, long breath in. Long breath out. Raise the hands back up. Bring the left hand behind you. Right hand onto right hip. Push it into that heel. Lift the hips. Send your right hand back. The gaze back, maybe palm facing down. Feel the squeeze of the back body to lift and lengthen the front body. And then start to bring that bum back to the mat. Turn the shoulders, keep the left knee bent, bring a bend into your right knee, take a hold of the base of the foot. Find your balancing point and then push that foot up. Make sure your big toe and little toe, same space away from the face. Squeeze the upper thigh to straighten that right leg. Then start to take a bend back into that right knee and plant the foot. Bring your left knee into meet. Make sure you're in a good place on your sit bones. Take a hold of the creases of the knees. Lay yourself back slightly. Bring your right foot up, your left foot up. Release the hands. Then if you're coming with me, we're just going to come to low boat for a count of 5. So on an out breath, bring yourself to low boat, shoulders and feet away for the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lower the head and shoulders to the mat. Bring yourself into a relaxed position. So making sure your shoulders are down and away from the ears with a little pinch of the shoulder blades together to create space across the chest. Have a little movement of the head from side to side, making sure it comes back to a centre space when you've done so. Separate the feet to the width of the mat and let the feet drop out to the sides. Push into the heels, lift the bum, tuck the tail, and give those hips a little rock when you've found a comfortable lower back. Make sure the whole of the spine is in one long line. Think about the upper limbs and the lower limbs being heavy and supported by the floor. From the crown of the head to the tips of the fingers and tips of the toes, have a check-in with how your body feels, and if you find anything that's tight, give the muscle a squeeze and then let that muscle relax. Take a long breath in and a long breath out. Let the floor be supporting the whole weight of the body, with you trying not to hold any muscle tension throughout. The eyes are closed, jaws relaxed. The shoulders aren't holding any tension or lifting to the ears. They're down into those back pockets. The upper, mid and lower spine is in comfortable space. The chest, the ribs and the belly are just rising on the inhale and going back down on the exhale. The palms are turned up to allow the shoulders to externally rotate. The feet are dropped out to allow the pelvis to be comfortable and those hip sockets to externally rotate. You can feel that space and air between 8 fingers and 2 thumbs and the space between 10 toes. Thanking all the joints throughout the body for their movement and their support. The muscles above and below each joint that are supporting that space. All those ligaments and tendons that are doing their job, either connecting muscle to muscle or muscle to bone. And that connective tissue that runs from the tip of the toes all the way up to the top of the head and down to the tips of the fingers. You can stay laid down for a little longer and pause me now. Or if you're coming to meet me and seated, maybe give a little rotation of the wrists and the ankles, a wiggle of the fingers and the toes. Maybe you want to take a full body stretch, stretching the hands up and over the head, stretching through fingers, toes, arching into the lower back. And then bringing the knees in towards the chest. Your choice to roll over onto one side or rock up and down a couple of times to a seat. If you've gone onto your side, take a long breath in, long breath out. When you next take a roll up and down, the next time you come to seated, join me in a seat. Everybody meeting in this space with the eyes softly closed. Growing tall through the spine, relax through the shoulders, slight bow through the head. On your next in-breath, reach the hands up and over the head. Bring the palms together at the top. Then bring the hands to the chest, soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, your words, your hearts, from my heart to yours. Namaste.